Welcome to Encroachment Sports Talk. NFL season week one is in the books, plus a game of week two. And we're here to just offer some of our thoughts on what is always exciting and generally unpredictable in terms of the way the NFL works. So, Chris, what stuck in your mind after week one?
Yeah, I'm so excited that we're into football. I can't even tell you. We had so much excitement going for our last episodes because we were on the cusp of actually starting football. It's now in process. We got 18 weeks of just some of the best action if you're a football fan that you'll ever have. So I was excited to get it going. Reactions from week one. One of the things that was real obvious to me, and we've talked about this in the past, because they've slimmed down the preseason so much and no starters really play anymore. It was really sloppy. I mean, I don't know if you watched at least the first half was real sloppy. I mean, sloppy in terms of execution, sloppy in terms of penalties, and the scores themselves were like well below. If you were an under guy, you would be happy as hell. So it was to me, it was just a byproduct of this preseason kind of protocol that they're doing. And I don't know if you noticed, but most of the games after the first half were like 7-7 or lower. I
did notice. I was away last weekend and couldn't watch. The only part I couldn't watch was the first half, and I checked the scores at halftime. I'm like, what is going on? Everything was 7-3 or 3-all, or
it looked like baseball.
Yeah, exactly.
It looked like baseball scores.
Yeah. So to your point, let's talk about some of the quarterbacks who were the most rusty. Lamar Jackson was horrible.
Yeah, right.
And he was 17 for 22, 169 yards and a pick. You know how many snaps he had in the preseason, even with the new offensive coordinator and a new system to zero. Like, what is that? You need to get familiar. I mean, they talk a lot about, joint practices and things like that, but that's not game action. I believe in joint practices, they still have the red jersey on. So
they do.
Until you take that red jersey off, it's not real football for the quarterback.
I agree with you 100%.
Dak Prescott, 13 for 24, 143 yards.
Yep.
0 preseason snaps. Joe Burrow obviously was rusty for good reason, but just to show you, he was injured, so he couldn't get the work in, but he had 0 work in. He was horrible.
Yeah.
That's not the Joe Burrow we know. And then Mahomes and Allen were both also off their game, but they each had 17 preseason passes, which is the equivalent of half a game. I mean, they should get at least over those 3 weeks, they should get at least one full game's worth, maybe 1.25 or something like that. But which quarterbacks? We'll get into this later, maybe in another episode. But which quarterbacks actually lived up to their expectations? It was all the rookies, right? Because they played the whole preseason, right? They got the snaps in. So anyway.
No, I agree with you. Well, so here's the what happens with that is, look at the names that you just mentioned. Josh Allen lost that game. He was rusty.
Yeah.
Prescott won the game, but it wasn't because of him. Mahomes lost the game, even though he probably played the best of all the ones we just talked about. Burrow's lost the game, and Lamar is lucky he played Houston on this first week. So, I mean, the bottom line is you better be prepared to lose that first game if you're going to play this preseason that way.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing of protecting a player from injury, I mean, it would be horrible to get injured in the preseason, and hindsight is always 20/20. But you're just as likely to get hurt in the first quarter of the first game. Ask Rodgers, right? I mean,
talk to Rodgers as he goes through Achilles surgery. So,
yeah. So, moving on, Chris, what is sort of the oldest saying in football in terms of what it takes to win a championship? Defense wins championships. And I think we saw that. I mean, it's early in the season, but I have a kind of interesting comparison. So we saw 2 very dominant defensive outings with pedestrian offensive outings. So the Cowboys anybody who saw that game, they were just dominant with, no points allowed, 7 sacks, only 171 yards allowed, and 3 turnovers. Their offense was, their offense struggled, as you pointed out about Dak. 54 yards passing, 154 yards rushing, 206 passing. That's not a great outing, yet they won 40-0.
Right.
The Browns, similarly, only allowed 3 points, only 157 yards allowed, 2 sacks. their offense had a good run game going. Over close to I think 206 yards rushing, but 143 yards passing. Overall, mediocre offensive performance, but also a very comfortable 24-3 victory. Let's talk about the other end of the spectrum. The two teams who had great offensive showings. It was actually the same game, both the Dolphins and the Chargers. Yeah. Dolphins put up 536 total yards, scored on 7 of 10 drives, only punted once because they had 2 turnovers in the red zone. So, I mean, they were moving it at will. Chargers ran the ball at will, got 34 points. Final score, 2-point game, right? It just shows you that your defense can set up an offense.
Yes.
Look at, I don't remember how many points the Cowboys scored directly on defense, but they set up 40 points for the offense because they were just so dominant. Great offense doesn't set up your defense, right?
No, I agree. So Dallas, just to fill in some of your stats, Dallas scored 1 defensive touchdown and 1 special team touchdown. So there's 14 points. In fantasy points, it was, because I'm always thinking about in terms of fantasy too, it was 37 points. That's got to be a record. So if you didn't have Dallas as your defense when you're playing all these different games, you're pretty much out of it, right? I mean, it's that dominant. That defense scored more than any quarterback did last week, which is crazy. That defense was, but the other defense that you didn't mention, Mark, was San Francisco.
I didn't mention them because it didn't fit my narrative. They actually brought good offense and good defense, and that's why they dominated.
They looked dominant, but they looked elite too. The two that I should have thrown the Browns in there because I do think they had a great defensive performance, and I think they have some key playmakers. But the two really elite defenses that I saw was San Francisco and Dallas. That goes back to the old days. Those used to be conference championship games every year back in the 90s, if you remember. Those defenses, those organizations know how to build, and they've built some championship elite defenses. It's pretty impressive. Again, caveat being what, Mark?
It's week 1.
Yeah, 2 caveats. Week 1, and what's the other caveat? Injuries.
Oh, injuries. Oh, and the third is F the Niners.
Yeah. Or go Cowboys with Brian.
Dolphin fan here. I still haven't gotten over the Montana.
Exactly. Oh, that's funny. So it's one of those things. So and of course they got to play at a consistent level. But if you get a Bosa hurt, or if you get Micah Parsons hurt or something, things can change. But right now they look just dominant.
It's funny you mentioned Bosa and Micah Parsons because I'm always going to keep bringing it up. Just imagine had the Niners not traded up for Trey Lance and stuck at 12.
They would have had both of them.
Parsons.
They would have had both of them. Yeah. Nobody would have scored any points on them forever.
Yeah. Anyway, so what else struck your mind from week 1?
Just some teams and players. I thought, and again, this is going to your helmet over there. And because you are a diehard Dolphins fan, but Tua is for real. At this point, if you didn't watch that game and think to yourself, there's no more debate on Tua. If he's healthy, he's elite. He is one of the top 5 quarterbacks in my mind. And again, I'm more non-biased, obviously, but being objective. I mean, look at those numbers: 466 yards, 3 touchdowns. The one that got me the most, 0 sacks, Mark.
Yeah,
sacks is not just about line play; it's about quarterback play too. He gets the ball off so quickly.
So this is the most impressive stat of the weekend. I mean, of Tua's game, he was 5th in terms of getting rid of the ball quickest, and number 1 in terms of most air yards downfield. So not only is he getting rid of the ball quick, he's not dumping it up to the receiver, on the just at the line of scrimmage for.
Or he's not throwing it away, right?
No, he's throwing it a slant 15 yards over the middle to Tyreek or Waddle, So, definitely impressive. People always like to say Tua is a system guy, and he is. Like, Tua doesn't have the arm strength of, he's probably lower third of the NFL in terms of arm strength. So throwing the ball outside the numbers, he can do it, but obviously that's not his strength. His strength is accuracy and anticipation across the middle. And so you have to have that system. Flores didn't set up a system where Tua could thrive. McDaniel did. So it's, the people who say he's only thriving because of a system, they're partly true, but not everybody, very few quarterbacks can do what he does in that system. So
I agree. Well, but I don't like the whole system thing in general, in that, of course, you can put a system together. If you're smart, you're going to put a system together that works with your quarterback and plays to his strengths, right? Joe Montana didn't have the biggest arm strength, believe me, but he had a great system, and he's doing exactly what Tua is. I mean, obviously, Tua's got a lot more to do before getting to Joe's stature, but it's the same thing. Now, West Coast system played to his strength, which is anticipation, accuracy, all the things that you mentioned. So,
you know what's funny though? I still hear detractors who don't watch Dolphin games who says you can throw the ball 5 yards downfield to Tyreek and Waddle and see them run for another 35 yards. So another stat from that game, and I'm not going to get these exactly right, but Herbert had 51 yards air yards, meaning distance thrown before the receiver made the catch, and about 200 after yards after the catch. Tua had 314 air yards and 150 after the catch, something crazy like that. So it's not yards after the catch. He's throwing the ball, pushing the ball downfield, and doing it well within that system. So,
and to me, it doesn't matter. Jerry Rice, you tell me how many times Jerry Rice, what was Yak all about? I mean, the term Yak came from Jerry Rice. I mean, and Madden and that whole thing. So I don't care how you get the yards, because you got to anticipate that throw and put it in such a place that he's got a place to go and anticipate, open field, so to speak. So, I'm not as hung up as some people are about Yak and that kind of stuff. I just want to see productivity. And I want to see him protect the ball, which he did. Just one turnover and no sacks. To me, that's incredible. So
yeah, they got to clean up the center exchange. For whatever reason, their center had some trouble.
Don't get to me about center exchanges. I'm a Vikings fan. We lost a game because of that, basically.
Yeah, that's true.
The other teams that I wanted to talk about real quickly, Detroit and Green Bay look like they're kind of the front runners in the NFC North. Love looked really good. Goff is playing at a pretty high level. He's not turning the ball over, and he's got a superstar in St. Brown. People may not know about him, but he's the real deal. Jacksonville is going to be dominant. I think the AFC South. They got so many weapons. And then in the North, it's going to be a slug fest, man. In the AFC North, those four teams are going to go at each other all year long.
Yeah.
So, any other observations you had about kind of the teams and players?
Yeah, it's a shame that the Falcons don't have a better quarterback, because those running backs are amazing. Algier and Bijan Robinson, they're both big, strong. They can both catch the ball, and that two-headed monster, and then they have Kyle Pitts, so he can protect a younger, inexperienced quarterback and throw the ball up for him. So they're going to be intriguing. The NFC South, whatever you call that division, that's
open
in the air. So I like what I saw from the Falcons.
Well, I agree. Yeah, their running game was spectacular, but getting to your quarterback criticism, Drake London had 0 points, 0 catches. How does a Drake London get nothing? That goes. You got to get the ball to him. Yeah. Come on, he's a top 10 receiver. Anyway. But that's going back to quarterback.
Well, great thoughts. We're going to come back in a little bit. We'll do another show, and we'll get our thoughts on all the young and rookie quarterbacks and how they've performed. So, thanks, Chris.
Sounds good. Yep.